We are on chapter 7, or not chapter 7, part 7 of Exodus. And before we get into the laws and the regulations that are set upon the people of Moses or the Israelites, we are going to talk about something slightly different, is their journey to get to that point. So let's go ahead and start out with a short quote. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. This is by Ondine, written September 1st, 1939. So the thing that comes to mind when I read this is, you're not you when you're hungry. That Snickers commercial. So funny, so ha ha ha, makes me want to eat a Snickers. Yes, that Snickers commercial, you are not you when you're hungry. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. People behave differently when under physical pressure, like not eating or drinking or what have you. It definitely causes stress on the body, therefore causing stress on the mind. So people act out. People become unruly. Let's go ahead and read this section here and see what we have to say about these people. Chapter 15. Then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. For 3 days they traveled in the desert without finding any water. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. So, yes, walking, no water. They came about some water, actually, but it was so bitter, and everybody was upset and complaining. Again, this is a lot of people, too, so, like, once one person gets upset, the crowd kind of affects the entire crowd, right? So Moses actually solved the case of the bitter water by throwing a log or a piece of driftwood somehow into the water, and it was replenished. It was healthy to drink and tasted sweet. So he did that before they entered Elim, but God's blessing was bestowed upon them, and when they entered Elim, they had an oasis, right? It was 12 springs with 70 palm trees. It was a perfect place for them to stay for a little while and replenish themselves. Then it says, the whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. So this gives you a little bit of perspective on the time frame. So after Elim, they went into Sin, and then this was on the 15th day of the second month. So now they have been traveling for 1 month and 15 days entirely on foot. I'm sure it's exhausting, right? So everybody was complaining. They were, cursing Moses. They were frustrated. They were even getting to a point where they were grumbling against God. Maybe not cursing God, but they were just like complaining, right? As we all do. Maybe every day, right? We complain. But this is what Moses has to say. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard you grumbling against him. That evening quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, then flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." So the Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. So this great blessing. Every evening, quail came came, they flew on the ground. I don't think they were dead already. Maybe they were alive. I don't know exactly the science behind it, but quail were delivered and they came to the place where they were encamped. They had lots of meat to eat. And this was every single night. This was for, I think, a straight week. Everybody was gathering Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then of course we had the Sabbath, which they were not required to gather anything there, and the people that did went out and they found no quail. So that's very interesting. Also, there was that layer of frost on the ground. As it was gathered, it was used to make manna. So it was like a yeasty, or maybe not yeasty, I don't know, some kind of wheaty bread material that they used to make bread, probably mixed it with some water. So that is a blessing from old, right? Let's go ahead. The Israelites, okay. Nevertheless, like I had mentioned, some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather it, but they found none. And then it says here, I will stand before you by the rock of Oreb. Strike, okay, so just fast forward a little bit. So I think they had left this place. They're thirsty again. They're complaining because they're thirsty. They're thinking they're going to die. They are coming across all these challenges in the realm of the body, right? And so God is seeing this, and to save a little bit of stress off of Moses' back, because he is really the one being attacked. The Lord says this: I will stand before you by the rock of Oreb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink. So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. And he called the place Massa and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? So this is really the beginning of people being people, right? People just being, naturally, intrinsically spoiled in a way. I mean, they were treated as slaves before this, but they were always saying along this journey, oh, we should have just remained slaves. At least we had our houses. At least we had our food. At least we had everything, our comforts, right? So now they are really just in the middle of the desert walking around. I can see how things would get a little bit frustrating, especially when the hunger and the thirst is involved. We have children, we have elderly people, so of course people are, frustrated. And then even though they remain getting blessed and they remain being spoiled, and the Lord is always looking out, they're still like, where is he? Where is the Lord? We want to be treated better, right? Even better than all the blessings that we've received. And I can just attest that sounds very familiar, right? We're wondering, like, if one little thing does not go wrong, we're like, why was I forsaken? Why was I treated like this? Why did this happen? I thought, the Lord was with me. I thought I was on the right path. And then, one little thing, and we all flip it upside down. So that's not a good way to be. We'll learn what happens after this. And I think the Lord needs to teach them a little bit of a lesson about instilling the faith, right? Making sure that faith remains strong, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of the situation that one might be in at the time. So, yes, strong faith always. Do not test the Lord, because he will surely test you much better than you can test him. Yes, all right. Let's go ahead and close out this little reading here. I'm going to start my shift for the day just like this. Awesome, not moving a muscle. Probably going to switch my position because my back is a little bit like crazy just from sitting here, but I digress. Have a good evening or a good morning, you guys, and a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.